Hey everybody, welcome to the In All Things podcast. It's time to see God in everything. Welcome everybody, welcome to a brand new episode of the In All Things podcast. I always introduce, so you can introduce us today. Go ahead.
Well, we're here with our host, Mitch Frost, and I am Steve Markle, our lead pastor here. Mitch is our student pastor, doing a tremendous job, as always. I mean,
Wow.
How are
I
you
wasn't
today?
expecting this.
Let me ask you a question. How are you today?
I am good. I'm tired.
You
I
always say
struggled
good.
getting out of bed today.
Why would that be?
Yesterday was a long day here at our church.
Yes, it was.
It was a good day. We're going to talk about it.
We are, yeah.
But yeah, it was a long day.
Yeah,
How are
it's
you
like one of
today?
those times where I feel tired, but in the same vein, energized.
Yeah.
Because, isn't that a weird thing to say? And getting up to go work out this morning was a decision that was not easy to make, right? But Dick wanted to get the day going because there's so much to talk about and unpack from yesterday. So I think we'll probably all be crashing tonight and feeling that. But
Possibly.
ready for this.
Yeah. So yesterday was an exciting day in the history of Sycamore Creek Church. Would you say that's true?
I
Is
would
that a true
say
statement?
100%.
Dramatic statement or true statement?
I don't think you're being overly dramatic.
Wow.
I said at the end of the night, maybe a little dramatic, not overly dramatic, right? I don't know. At the end of the night, I was like, this is my favorite thing that we've done as a church. Now, I mean, like Easter and Christmas and some other things we've had, like worship services that have been amazing, of course. But I mean, as an outreach event, nothing has compared to what we did last evening. So yeah, I was pretty pumped up.
Yeah. So let's just go through our day. We started with Sunday morning, right?
Yeah.
And any thoughts from how that went? How were the services? How was everything?
It was good.
day?
Yeah, week 2 of our series, Decision Fatigue. We talked about overcoming temptation and went through the story of Joseph and his temptation with Potiphar's wife. And I think it went well. I think the services went well. I don't know what the numbers were, but it was a good feeling. And met some first time guests. Here's a little highlight from yesterday. I love like the little things because we get focused on big picture a lot, but like the stories, I love this. So this guy. Who's around 60 years old, comes to the guest central afterwards with his card, first time or second time guest, but he has really been impacted by the services he's been to. But I said, how did you find out about our church? What brought you here? And he said, months ago, he was, I don't know, maybe more than months ago, maybe a year ago, he was going into the fire academy to be a firefighter at an older age, but he was like, I was going to do this. And he said, it was our first day. And everybody that's in the training had to introduce themselves. And he said, there was a young man named Clayton Howard. And he introduced himself. He said, you introduce yourself how you want. He said, I'm Clayton Howard, and I'm a Christian. I follow Christ, and blah, blah, blah. And he said, I was like, this young man is like, I don't know, 18 to 20 years old, talking like that. He said, it blew me away.
Wow.
He said, so I followed up with him, and I asked him more questions. He invited me to church. And he said, it took a long time, but here I am now because of that. And I'm like, it just shows you the impact that you can make. And that story in itself was just awesome. I met some other people yesterday, first time guests, and that's always cool. There was a pastor here, that older gentleman who was like recovering from some type of surgery, and he was on a little break from his church, but he and his wife were here, and it was cool to talk to them too. So anyway, that was a little bit of my morning. How was yours?
Typical Sunday morning.
Yeah.
It was good. Yeah. Services felt good. I did welcome, so I was kind of a part of both. Our middle school thing was awesome. A lot of students. They had like
Diversion.
20. We've had 20 the last couple weeks, which is good. And so that's been good. It was a typical morning, but there was just this buzz. Like I feel like there was this energy kind of
Waiting for the night.
Waiting for what we were going to do that
exactly,
night, but just like even that morning, I felt like people were a little bit more talkative. There's a little bit more just like buzz, energy, which you kind of feel on holidays and things like that. But I felt it yesterday.
Yeah.
And then last night was the food truck festival.
Yes.
That's what we called it. First time we've ever done something like that. So give us a summary of what it was. What did we do? Well,
we decided, just a little bit of backstory is, we decided going into this year, we wanted to do more to reach out in our community. And some people know the story, and I got to share this with several people last night, but the story of our church, I'm not going to tell the whole story of Sycamore Creek, but it's been a process of land sale, and then doing our offices, doing our renovation. We had a campaign. We added the next gen, and then we opened up in the middle of COVID, but we really never had a grand opening. So, the community knows we're here, and they know our building looks a lot better than it used to. But what's really Sycamore Creek all about? So anyway, in just the last year, we sold our final 2 acres that was frontage along Refugee Road. They're building a little strip mall there now. Anyway, because we got a little bit of money from that, we thought, okay, well, we could just slap that onto our debt, or we could spend some money to reach out to our community and do something to impact our community this year. So this was the first big thing we did. A few weeks ago, we did a Porter's coffee truck for all of the employees of Pickerton schools, and served them in the morning, and it was a surprise, and that was awesome. They loved that. But this was a thing we thought, okay, let's do something really big and get people on our property, but without any gotcha. We're not going to get them here and try to make them stand there and listen to a sermon, or, do a big sales pitch, or make them fill out a detailed information card. We just want to say, hey, we're here. We love you. We love our community. We want to do something nice for you. So this idea developed, and it was in one of our staff meetings. We're talking about what can we do? And we're like, what if we go big with a food truck festival where we pay for everything, which is kind of crazy. You saw the comments, and people,
I've never heard of it before.
No, nobody. People just didn't believe it. Are you really paying for everything?
How much are you paying for? I saw some comments like that. Free's never free.
So what is it? What is the price range of stuff we can buy? Nothing.
Yeah.
There is none. So we it was okay, how much is this going to cost? Let's just do it. So we had 9 food trucks. One of them canceled the day before because the owner had COVID. So that was.
Oh, I didn't know that.
No, you didn't know that. The barbecue truck.
Oh,
so therefore
gotcha.
That's why we had pizza. So we got Cardo's Pizza to take that spot, which meant they just kept delivering pizzas after pizzas. And
they ran out of dough.
They ran out of dough. So we ran out of. It was crazy. So that was cool. So 9 food trucks. Then we did the drinks so that would save a little bit of money, because no point everybody's giving drinks out of their trucks. And then we had face painting, balloon artists, jump house for the kids, moon bounce, and then a cornhole tournament and a hot dog eating contest, which you might want to talk about. But anyway, we just had no idea how many people would come.
Yeah, we were talking about it a few weeks leading up to it. I know Christy was especially. Shout out Christy. She was the one who kind of drove a lot of this. And the people, she had a team with her that planned a lot of the things, and they did an amazing job. But the weeks kind of leading up to it was okay, we could have 200 people here,
right,
or we could have a couple thousand, and we don't know what to expect. It was kind of this weird. And you said yesterday after church, we were about getting ready to leave and go home for a little bit, and you were like, "This is the weirdest feeling, because I genuinely don't know what's going to happen tonight." No idea.
Yeah, every year, when we have Christmas Eve, of extra services, Easter, oh, it's going to be big, and we know it's going to be, but we know it's not going to be crazy. I don't know what that means, but we, just something you're used to, you do every year. This is something we've never done. So there was that nervous, excited feeling, and then we get here, and I get here 4, started at 5, and Christy and Terry, I gotta shout out. She is awesome at events, and she has so many of them coming up between church and Brock Strong. But they busted their tails all weekend, and we're here almost all day Sunday. And I had a great team, because I'm like, what time you need me to come? She goes, we got volunteers signed up to clean up, to set up. And I was like, okay. But man, it just started happening. 4:45, people started pouring into the parking lot. And we ran out of parking. People were parking up on the hill, up on the grass, all over the place.
There's so many cars
up the street, up E-Bright Lane. I was like, oh man, it was crazy. The flood of people, and so many people came up to me and were like, "Is this what you expected?" I'm like, in my mind, I thought it could be like this.
Yeah,
I really did.
Yeah,
I thought it might be smaller, and I thought it might be this, but I didn't expect it could be bigger than this.
No,
I think it actually. There's people that I heard drove by and nah, it's too busy. I'm not going to. The lines for every food truck were long.
Yeah.
But the number of people, and somebody asked me, "Oh, do you know what percentage do you know?" And I was like, maybe 20%.
Yeah.
Of people I recognize from church.
Jared, would you say that too? 20% of people that you knew, from church-ish? Yeah.
Ish. And we estimated, we were sometimes pastors can be known to exaggerate numbers, and we were you and I were talking about it. We're 2,000 easy without being conservative. And Christy, who's more, conservative, usually she said, I think it could be more like 3,000.
Yeah.
So somewhere we're going to say between 2,000 and 3,000.
I mean, I was telling you, when we first came out and started walking down the main just to see all the trucks that were there and just to kind of see who was there, probably a little bit after 5, there was at one point that I just looked back and forth down this, our main drive of our church, and I was just like, this is unbelievable. Like, it's just, it looks like the Ohio State Fair. Like, it was just like, wow, this is so cool.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know. It was awesome.
Drone footage was cool. And we had a drone
very cool.
up there. Jared got some good.
We had our tube inflatable guy on the roof.
Ned.
So,
he was up on the roof.
Shout out Jared for that.
Yeah, that was not an easy task.
But yeah, it was an awesome day.
Yeah.
And just like you said, just getting to walk up and down and just meet people that you've never met before, and you would have really no way of meeting besides doing something bold like this.
Yes.
And I know Jared said like he got to give 6 or something tours of the building, and I know there was other volunteers that got to do that as well. And it's just cool to see people come from the community, all over the community, to our church property and be like, wow. And Lexi, my wife, made a point last night, like, we were talking about it afterwards, just like, wow, that was awesome, blah, blah, blah. And she was like, I think even the fact that just like our doors were open, like we had porta-johns, but like our doors were open. Yes, we had security. Yes, we were safe. But like people could kind of just come in and, oh, this is really nice. And what are they all about? And it was just very like, hey, this could be crazy. This could be awesome, but we want the community here. And it was cool. It
was so cool. I mean, so many stories because I just didn't know. I mean, I didn't know what I was going to be doing. I just kept walking around. Yeah. I got in one food line. I did have pita eventually. It took 45 minutes, I think. It was worth it. It was amazing. But in that line, it was cool. People came up and talked to me. Like, here's like a cool story. Family that they came to church because their daughter came to Extreme Week, and I've told you about that.
Yeah, we talked about this.
Yeah. So they've come 3 straight Sundays, loving it. They're come up, talk to me in line, and this other couple comes up that they haven't seen in 5 years.
Yeah.
Whose their older sons were friends in sports and everything. They start talking. And this other couple was interested in seeing our church building. So the family that's been coming to our church for 3 weeks gave them a tour of the building. I mean, like, what's that about? And then talking to them, the newer family, I was talking to the wife, and the husband was busy talking to his friend, and she was like, they've just been the last 3 weeks, like the story of Joseph and she said, my husband never heard that before. I mean, he's been in church and never heard that. The Abraham story from a couple weeks ago, never heard it before. Like, it's just like, wow, it's like light bulbs going on. Yeah. And I mean, I can't get enough of that. I went over and sat at a table for a few minutes and met some family friends of some people that we're close to and got to hear their story. And one guy had been at Sycamore Creek years ago, like when the first pastor of the church was here, when they were in the shopping center down by John Eagle. And he hadn't been back since all of that. And so it was cool just to kind of tell the story. And some people from other churches that were just like so complimentary. Like, this is awesome for our community. So, and still the free factor is the one that I think was the most mind-boggling.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, from our students' side of things, it was cool because, the Food Truck Festival was kind of during our weekly youth group time. And so we were like, hey, let's just get together for 30 minutes before it starts and just do a message. Like, because we don't want to kind of miss a week of that. And hey, we're still going to have to go to this food truck festival together.
You had a series planned.
Yeah.
And so next week you're off because of Labor Day.
Right. So I was like, let's do something and just see what happens. And to be very honest with you, like, I was thinking maybe 20, 25 students would show up. Like, I think if we had a little group together just to do that before we went out, that's really what we were trying to do. And we had over 50 students gathered.
I saw when you emptied out, it was this flood of kids came over.
And this is funny from my point of view too. We go in to set up, and I didn't, which is my fault, I didn't connect the dots that all the red chairs, which is our youth group chairs, are being used outside. And so we come in and start setting up, and I'm like, crap, all our chairs are gone. And so we just sat on the floor and we just made it work. And it was awesome. But shout out to Jeff Dingus, because it's a funny story. He's our head of security here. And he was upstairs watching the cameras when people kind of started flooding in and parking and all that started to happen, like right before 5. And that was right when we let out. And he kind of on the radio was like, I think it was to Tim Henderson, was like, hey, there's a big group coming around the outside of the church. Just be ready. Like there's a lot of people coming in all at once. And Tim was like, yeah, that's all of our students coming out. So it was just cool. And it was, but to have them all there and they saw a lot of, they were kept telling me, I had students come up to me like, hey, my friend is here that, I go to school with and never goes to church. Like it was cool from that point of view as well. But
I my biggest question I like to ask people is like, why'd you come? What brought you? How'd you know? And it was like, so many different reasons. But the street signs, the yard signs, they actually worked. A lot of people told me that was why they came, or they saw the sign, they drove by down the road and saw our sign. Somebody invited them. It was just everything. Yeah.
Well, I had I've never done this before on this podcast. This is the first.
Okay.
I had a whole different plan here, but I don't even want to talk about it anymore. Because I think the conversation that we're starting right now is really, really important.
Okay.
So coming off of this thing last night, and I'm not going to use names here, but I know that you got a comment / a message, I can't quite remember, of somebody that kind of saw that we were doing this and said, hey, make sure that you, what did they say exactly? Take every
opportunity to tell every person that you can that's there about Jesus.
Okay, so I want to go kind of that
the
route.
iPad is down.
Yeah, we're not even using this today. How, did we accomplish that? I think, was last night a form of evangelism? Was last night, was it just free food? Or was there something maybe internally from our staff and maybe our people who go to church here that are hoping something more comes out of this? Why did we do this? Was it just to give out some free food and do something that's never been done before? Or did we have a bigger reason than that?
Well, obviously, the answer. We have a purpose behind everything we do. That would be a big waste of money if all we wanted to do was just do that. Because I don't think the people that came, for the most part, couldn't have provided their own meal, right? Or we weren't down in feeding homeless or anything like that. So, which is something that we do. But so, what would be the point of this? Going back to what I was starting to say earlier about we didn't have a grand opening, and we want the community to know we're here, and we want them to know that we love them, that we care about them. Why? Ultimately, it's about making disciples. Ultimately, it's our slogan, our purpose statement: changing the world by changing lives. And so, is that evangelism, what we did last night? I would call it pre-evangelism somewhat. It's like getting people's foot in the doors, kind of, so to speak, on our campus, knowing that we're here, we're loving them. It's not about asking them for money. Somebody said there's no baskets for people to put money in to give. No, it's not. And I think it's just letting people know that there's something different about those people at Sycamore Creek Church, that they love their community. And we've been, you've mentioned this, we've talked about this, is if our church went away, would anybody even notice? We want people to notice that we're here, and God's given us this opportunity. Now we have a building and we want it to be full, and we believe that the message of Jesus is life-changing, and that's what we're all about. We're not going to hide that. That wasn't hidden yesterday. In fact, I had a DJ, and we told him play a mix of. He said, "Should I do a mix of? Do you want all Christian songs, or do you want?" I said, "We want songs people are going to know and people are going to relate to and have fun." But then mixing in Christian songs all through it. That's what he did. Some of them were not ones you really might have liked anymore. They were a little older, but I noticed some people know them and recognize them. And in the middle of what are some of the songs like? Don't Stop Believing by Journey was on, and then the next song might have been like, Our God is an Awesome God. Right. So it's like subliminally getting that message out there. But I think we're not hiding who we are. That's not it at all. But sometimes you have to work to gain an audience with people. And I grew up with the whole confrontational evangelism approach, where it's just like you go up to people, strangers, and you just like, hey, if you die tonight, are you going to heaven or hell? What do you know? And, that is an approach that I don't think is very effective. I think it had its day, maybe. I don't know if it was ever really super effective, because you can pressure people into making a decision that they don't really understand. But that's up to God to judge. But I do believe that you start with love, letting people know you love them. But then, if you come to our services, the name of Jesus is what we're all about. Every service, every song, it all points to who he is. So, I understand the person who made that comment. Like, I'm not offended. I'm just I understand what you're saying. And there is I think we should have maybe what's the word? Not, I'm trying to think of the word, but where we feel a little bit more pressure or more urgency to share our faith. I think sometimes we can just be like, well, whatever happens, let people decide for themselves. Mm-hmm. We need to tell them so they know what they're thinking, what they're deciding, what they're knowing about Jesus, so they can make a decision. So sometimes I think we're guilty. I'll say that about myself. And as a church, I mean, we could be that way where we're like, we're just passive, shy about the message. Like, no. But I think there's a place like to have events where you're not just, preaching, but you're showing the love of Christ by what you're doing. Yeah. I mean, do you agree?
Yeah, 100%. This is, kind of what I was hoping where we'd go. But like, I think even, it's hot. Yesterday was really hot, and we were really sweaty. I mean, I don't think I saw anybody not sweaty. And you're just, as I was walking through the lines and just going, through everything that we had put on, cornhole tournament, everything. Everybody I saw from our church, maybe that 20, whatever percent that I did know, was overjoyed to be there. And that really stood out to me yesterday of just like, the people that we do know that are part of Sycamore Creek that were there yesterday, they were like, you could just feel it and sense it from them that this was really special to our church. And even though, yes, we weren't preaching and there was no sermon and you didn't get, there was nothing like that. Right. Like, it was just like this, wow, like, they're happy to be here. Like they're, they're embodying Jesus to this, a couple thousand people that are here getting free food. Like whether it just be going around meeting people or just staying there talking or greeting or picking up trash or whatever it was, all I saw was smiles and joy. 100%. And I was just like, that's awesome. Like, that's a form of evangelism in and of itself.
People getting the vision. Like, and like people that, it gets me to people that haven't even been here that long, that get it. Oh, yeah. And they're coming to me like, are you happy about this? This is awesome. And they haven't even been here that long. Yeah. And they're like, they get it. And they want people to get it. They know that the message that they're hearing here, the message of the gospel is changing their life and their family. And they want other people to get it. And they invited people already. And then, I mean, people that have been here a long time are like, this is like so cool to see all these people here. They're just so excited for it. Yeah. I mean, my mom, who's older, obviously, and my grandmother, they came for like just a short period of time just to see it. And they were like, it's hot and it's so crowded and we're not going to stand in a line and melt. Yeah. But they were like pumped up, like, because they get the vision and so, I mean, people were talking to me at the end last night of all ages, just so thrilled that we did this and that they could say we're part of Sycamore Creek Church and we love people and we do this. And and people, various people, and one lady stood out, Carol Earhart. She met several people she never knew before and had conversations. And then she went and got me and said, do you mind coming to meet somebody? I'm like, yeah, I don't want to do that. Like, no, man, I would love to do that. So I met, through her and some other people, I met people that were here out of the blue from the neighborhood, from surrounding areas. And that's the, like captivating people's mind. Like, okay, we love them and we have a message to share about Jesus. And so, I'm not offended. I get where it comes from. Absolutely. I'm more offended by the person that was complaining that our music was too loud and it was 8:00 at night. But sure. That was kind of funny. I thought, really? Anyway. No,
and it's funny because I had a couple moments like that too. Jared introduced me to a new family with a couple students that would be, a part of our thing. And like we were standing in line, Lexi was getting Mexican food, and there had multiple people come to me, hey, this is so-and-so, they're my neighbor, and they're my coworker, and these are their kids, and just getting to meet people, and just like that was so cool. And I think one point that we need to clarify maybe is this: we're not trying to sit here and say Sycamore Creek is the definition of all things good and we have everything figured out. Is that true?
100%.
We are feeling fired up and we are talking a lot about our church. But
the cool thing, I mean, like one of the couples I met was in line when I was in line. She's on staff at Grace Fellowship down the street, which is a very large, I mean, you would call it a mega church in our town and an awesome church. Like, and we do a lot of things very similar to them, just we're much smaller than them. They're a big church, multi-campus, and she's on their staff. And she was just saying how awesome this was. And she's like, they love the community. And I said, you guys have done a great job over the last 20 years of being an example for that. And I said, and we want to do more like that. And she said, it's no reason we're all on the same team. I'm like, yes,
absolutely.
yes. Yeah. We learn from you. You might get an idea from us. We learn from other churches. I mean, it doesn't matter who's bigger, who's smaller.
All on the same team.
It's all on the same team, and that's awesome. And and it was a great conversation about that.
Yeah.
So I just think that, I just want to, take advantage of what this time God's given us. Like, like the whole point of like slap, this might, some people are like, how much did this cost? I don't know, $30,000. Slap that on our $3 million debt. It's not going to change our payment that much, but impacting lives with the urgency of like, okay. And we won't know the impact right away. Like it's going to be, it's a thing that it's residual over time. We'll start seeing people. It doesn't mean like, we had 2,000 people here. They're going to be 200 of them are going to come to church this Sunday.
Right.
I mean, maybe.
Yeah.
But over time, they start hearing.
Well, I think even more than that too is now, let's say we're going to be very conservative. Let's say there was 1,000 people there last night. And of those 1,000 people, we've talked about this before, they all have many circles of influence, friends, family that weren't there. Right. And now every time that they see our name somewhere, this kind of thing, this event, this generosity is going to be stapled to our name a little bit.
Yeah.
So now next time that we, whether it be we promote a service or we promote a worship night or we do something, there's going to be people who go, that's that church that put on that,
they're not
unbelievable,
just
right?
They're not just in it for themselves,
right?
Just to build their kingdom,
right?
I mean, there's a bigger picture here,
right?
Yeah.
And so that's just something to think about that I can't get off my mind. Is like now there's going to be people in our community that live in this neighborhood and across the street and here, and they're going to be like, wow, like that's the church. Remember, they're doing a Christmas service this year. Like that's the church that we went there and had an amazing time.
Where would I think to go for Christmas? I might go there.
So it's just it is bigger than we wanted to do a food truck.
Absolutely,
yeah. But I like your whole point of being on the same team, no matter what church you go to, and
if they're preaching the gospel,
if they're
clear about that. Not every church is on the same
towards
team.
Truth, then we're on the same team.
Yeah,
and
right.
We're shouting out a lot of people today. But shout out Jared again. There was a new couple that we met not this week, but the week before that he introduced us to, and we got to talking for a minute. And we hope you guys enjoyed it. Blah blah. Let us know if you need anything. And really quickly, Jared said, hey, there's a ton of awesome churches in this area. And if ours isn't really what you want, let us know and we'll help you find, something that's more suited for you. Right. And that's something that some churches could, just say, but like we're not all about just what we're doing. We're about people finding, a community of people and truth and walking with God every day.
I used to be a little more possessive. I mean, and I don't want that to mean like I don't care, but I don't like people leaving the church. If they're going though to another church for a good reason that preaches the gospel and they're going to be in a community where they're going to grow, I'm cool with that. I don't think church hopping is good. I did talk to somebody who's like, I just like to go wherever there's a series that I like, and then I go find another church with another series. I'm like, there
is something about being planted.
You got to get plugged in. I mean, and if you're changing churches every year or two, you're not. That's not good. That's not healthy. I mean, there's all kinds of reasons you're never going to find the perfect church. I mean, the ones that you think were perfect, and I'm just going to tell you, man, it may take you a little while to figure it out. We're not. I mean, because we're all imperfect staff members and leaders, but I was just having those feelings of just last night, like, I'm so proud of our church. Like, and I don't mean that pride in a bad kind of pride, like just like, wow, look at these people serving. Look at these people like loving this and loving people. Like, this
is what we're called to do.
Yeah. Like, I mean, I know it just was one of those. That's why I said it's one of my favorite moments. And I didn't preach a sermon, didn't have the high. I mean, because some of our favorite highs, I mean, are like that worship night we had before on Good Friday, amazing night. And that was all, about worshiping Jesus, right? Yeah. But what we did last night, I think is taking steps to bring people to Jesus, and so they can experience that too. So it's making disciples.
Yeah. So let's end with this. Somebody's listening. They don't work in the church. They're not on staff like us. They don't maybe see things some of the ways that we see things, and so they work 9-to-5 job, wherever that may be, or they're a stay-at-home parent, and they're listening to this and they're going, okay, so you guys are saying, we talk about sharing our faith a lot and bringing other people to Jesus, and we say those things, and you guys are kind of making it sound like it's not this formula, and it's not this set of steps. And so what can we say to those kind of people that are maybe seeing an event like last night? Maybe they came, maybe they didn't. And they're saying, wait, so we just showed up. We had a good time. We were generous. It was fun. It was awesome. And that's a way to show Jesus to other people. How can we take an event like last night and use that as an example for all of us to begin to show what Jesus looks like every day? Not in a pushy way, like you said, not turn or burn, nothing like that. Mm-hmm. But how can we take last night as an example to now go on into our jobs or into our families or into our friendships, neighbors, wherever, and begin to live the same way? How can we do that?
That's a big question. I think that's a good discussion for us to have, and you probably have thoughts on this too. So I don't want to just steal the answer time here, but I think the truth is there's some people that are good at the speaking part, not good at the living it out part. So their walk doesn't match their talk, and then there's some people that are all walk but they never talk. Sure, it's almost like saying my life is so amazing and I am so awesome that people are just going to watch me live and then give their lives to Christ. Mm-hmm. You think you're that awesome that you don't ever have to say what the reason is for why you are different? So I think there's that, the perfect blend that we're all searching for in life. Mm-hmm. None of us are perfect, but we're living a life to follow Christ. So it's lifestyle. I think lifestyle matters. I think people that I've influenced for Christ have walked with me a little bit. They've seen me and they're like, he's consistent. Mm-hmm. Like he is, backing up what he says. He's not perfect, but I see a consistency in him, something that's admirable, something that I'd like in my life. And I want to know more about that. Mm-hmm. And when we have opportunities to share faith, to talk about the difference, I think some people, like you said, formula, I don't know all the verses. I don't have them memorized. You get up there on the stage and you're like, for the wages of sin is death, but the free gift of God is eternal life through Jesus Christ. I can't say that. And you don't have to say that.
They take themselves out of the running a little bit.
Yeah. It's like there's more than one way of sharing your faith. I remember years ago, I may have mentioned this before, but Bill Hybels did a thing on, I forget what it was called, but it was about evangelism. And he was identified 6 forms. And one is the very direct form. But
and some people are good at that.
Yeah, they are. And there's a place for it. Mm-hmm, there is.
For sure.
But one form was testimony form. It's not about quoting verses, but it's about here's what Jesus did in my life.
Yeah, he changed me.
Everybody has that. Mm-hmm. If you don't have that, then you need to have that. You need to have something to share. And I think it's telling a story, and the thing about it is all these different forms are biblical. Mm-hmm. And if you look at different styles of evangelism, they're all biblically based. Mm-hmm. And there's different personality types that we have that people have always had. Yeah. And so, you think about some are like the come and see. I remember was it Andrew said to Peter's brother, come and see this man who's, some people are good at that. They're not good at sharing their whole story and telling people how to believe in Jesus.
Really good at
but they can say, "Hey, I can bring you to church," and that we saw that last night. And I would encourage people that are listening, like you said, to the average church person that's listening. They don't think about an event like last night the same way we think about it. Mm-hmm. But a lot of them get the picture. The vision is that we're not here just to have our 500 to 800 people every week and just a huddle. We're here to reach people. Yeah. And I think everybody in our church pretty much knows that. We're outwardly focused, but it happens. The church growth that we want to see happen is going to happen because people invite people. We will do things like advertise from time to time our services in a magazine or put a sign up along the road. But the main reason that people are going to come is because you're inviting them, right? You have circles, like you just said, and you're inviting. What do you think about all that?
No, I that's what I'm trying to get at. Is there's not just one way to do it, and I think that's what we really struggle with. Is I think we hear messages on the Great Commission, go spread the gospel, go do this, and we think that's a a black and white thing. We think there's a one way, one type of person, one thing that you have to do, and like we said earlier, a lot of people just disqualify themselves from that because they go, man, I could never speak like that. I could never do that. I could never get on stage. I could never be bold. So I can't do it. Maybe someday God will allow me to be like that. Maybe someday God will just make me better than I am now. So I'll just wait till that moment. I'll just, maybe get better at these little things like reading my Bible and stuff like that. And maybe God will make me like that person. Well, what if God wants to use you the way you are now? What if you are good at inviting? What if you are good at sharing stories? What if you are good at being open and vulnerable? What if you are really good at the logical side of things? What if you are really good at explaining? Like we're all different, and dive into the Bible. You're going to find out that that's exactly the way that God wants us to be. We're called the body of Christ. And, Paul and Jesus talk a lot about how the bodies has different roles and different functions. And you might be a big toe, you might be a belly button. I don't know, but they're all different, right? Yeah. And your unique skills and sets and abilities and what you care about, what you're passionate about, your circle of influence, all these things kind of add together and mix in this big mixing pot that's you. And you have a unique way to invite people and bring people to Jesus.
Yes.
There's not one way to do it. And I just think when we buy into that mindset that I got to be like that, or I got to learn that, or I got to know this many verses, or I got to be this good, or I got to look this way.
Right.
Once we just get sold on that mindset, we don't end up actually doing anything. There's a lot of people that are just waiting to become or waiting to arrive at some moment that they actually are just paralyzed and they never end up changing anybody's life.
Yes.
Never planting any seeds.
Yes. Now, I think the word that no matter what your style is, the word is urgency. There needs to be an urgency about us. And I think that we lack that. And not talking about, all of us as Christians in the church, we can lack urgency. And I think COVID maybe put a few people to sleep on that. Like, well, what are we going to do? We're just going to do our thing, stay in our homes and not share the gospel. Yeah. And so, man, we are back. And I am just super excited about the season ahead of us as a church. And I can't wait to see what happens from this. This is just the beginning. And I think we're going to see God grow his kingdom in our church. And that means reaching people for Jesus, seeing more people get baptized, just like we saw beginning of this month. And I think just great days are ahead. Just like it's contagious. Yeah. It's contagious. I think that was the name of the Hybels thing. It's called Contagious Christianity. There you go. And that we all need to be contagious no matter what it is. Contagious is not a good word in the last couple of years, but are you contagious as a Christian? And are you spreading what you have and however you do it? So, I'm excited about that.
Yeah. Absolutely. All right, let's give our closing thoughts, takeaways.
I do want to say this. This is a closing maybe, but
sure.
I do want to just say that, just talk for a minute. I want to ask you, because we are going into week 3 of our series, Decision Fatigue, and we've talked about pre-deciding, and I've talked about last Sunday, overcoming temptation fatigue.
Yesterday.
By the time people see this on Thursday, it'll be last Sunday. But I talked about Joseph and how he dealt with temptation and how we get worn. That's a part of that decision-making muscle that gets worn out. Like we are overly tempted with things in our lives that come before us, and we get worn out to the point where sometimes we give in to things that we don't want to. So anyway, we talked about some keys to overcoming temptation fatigue. So this week, in week 3 of our series, you're speaking, and it's on the idea of the consistency factor. Like one of the keys to dealing with decision fatigue is consistency. So give us just a little bit of an appetizer, to this, something to make us want to come, because I'm coming. I'm going to be there.
You're going to be there?
I am going to be there. I'm going to do the welcome this week. Wow. I'm going to give my heart for the announcements, but I'm anxious for this sermon on Sunday. So,
yeah, I think that God's desire for each and every one of us is consistency. I think that God's heart for us is to bring us to maturity, and being mature is being consistent. And so I think contagious, I'm actually going to use that word. Okay. Consistency is contagious. Oh. It's not celebrated. It's not something that you see promoted a lot in this world, but when you are consistent, or somebody who's consistent, you want to be like that.
Wow.
And so I think that this week is, especially it's all about the deciding to be consistent in your walk with God. And I think it potentially could be the key to changing the way that you view everything. So I'm excited for it.
That is good.
When you told me that, I was going to be doing Labor Day, and I think this was just the way that the series lined up that you had kind of planned out. I was like, I get to talk about consistency. That's one of my favorite things to talk about. So I'm very excited.
That's good. And I think it doesn't get celebrated enough. I think you're right. I think, and the following week I'll be talking about spiritual decisions that we make, and making those decisions over and over the right way, because it'll go along. It'll just go right after yours. So that's gonna be good. So closing thoughts on today.
I think we've hit on a lot. This is funny. We haven't done this before. This is not where I thought we would go, but I think it's really good. I think that there has to be some level of urgency, and I think we have to stop selling ourselves short. I think we have to know that the way that we are, the skills that we have, our abilities that we have, they can be used, and we got to stop just counting ourselves out and just, I'm not good enough. I don't have the words that, like you said, we are good enough because God is good enough, and that's all we need.
Yes.
And so he's going to use us if we say yes. And that's really what it comes down to.
That's good. I mean, decision fatigue in that area of sharing our faith, sometimes we just, we get tired and we
overcomplicate it.
Yeah, we do. So let's just make the decision that, every day and every opportunity, you have little ways to share your faith, whether it's a text, whether it's a conversation,
whether it's a smile,
whether it's buying somebody a meal. It can be so many things, but don't miss those opportunities. Just make that decision. Maybe that's a good way to land.
There we go. Well, what an awesome weekend that we're wrapping up here in our church. Excited for the future.
Yep. In all things, God is working. God's working in a food festival.
Yes, he is. Let us know what you thought. Give us some thoughts, questions, topic ideas for the future. We want to continue to build this podcast and make it, what you guys want to listen to. So let us know, and we will see you next week on the In All Things podcast.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the In All Things podcast. Our challenge for you today is to send this episode to one person. Seriously, think of somebody right now that could use this conversation and send it to them. If you have any questions, feedback, or topic ideas, please send them to podcast@sycamorecreek.org, and make sure you follow us on Instagram and Facebook at Sycamore Creek Church so that you can always see what's going on in our world. If this conversation helped you at all, make sure you share it, leave a review, and subscribe so that you don't miss out on a single episode. We love you, God loves you, and we'll see you next week on the In All Things podcast.